I'd like to thank Allegra Baggio Corradi and Shibboleth for inviting me to be a part of this Shibboleth's publishing project last fall, Emic Units. At the time, I was in the middle of a journey where I found that everything that could be known to me was language-based in the sense of names, cumulative facts, riddles, encoded information. I was adopted and I was trying to learn about my origin story. Earlier in my adult life, I completed a search for my birth mother, which ended in her refusal to reveal her identity to me. In the state of Wisconsin in the 60s and 70s, where I was adopted 4 months after I was born, adoptions are legally closed and people can't find out who their birth parents are unless those birth parents sign an affidavit to release their identities or unless they die. So during this time, I learned that I had an impounded birth certificate, which was kept a secret from me because it contained the names of my birth mother and the person that she revealed to be my birth father. The Shibboleth project that I was asked to create was a response to how visual language sheds light on specific characteristics of verbal language. My project, Impounded, considers how distinct kinds of visual forms like photography, sacred geometry, the data visualizations of DNA test results, and the visual patterns found in domestic environments can lead to knowledge of one's identity. If a name is a representation or sign of a person, say Donna, or a relationship, say mother, how might these other visual forms hold and illuminate different aspects that pertain to what you can know personally about an individual or impersonally about a relationship? A year ago, I had my DNA tested with Ancestry.com, and I remember reading a disclaimer on the website that really stuck with me. All knowledge you find is irrevocable, meaning you can't give it back. To learn the name of someone biologically related to you, of whom you've never had any previous knowledge, is both astounding and disquieting. It feels completely random and abstract. In my case, I found who I believe is my uncle, my birth father's brother. We shared a lot of DNA. And my uncle spoke to my alleged birth father about me, and my birth father denied any relation with me. During this multi-year process, I was able to follow a trail of text-based breadcrumbs. Growing up, my mother always told me I was adopted, suspected my original name was Lee, and didn't have any identifying information about my birth parents. What she did have was a non-identifying social genetic report, which included all kinds of information about my birth mother, who she was, who her family was, where they came from. And it also contained a lot of information about my alleged birth father and his family, who he was, where he came from, but it didn't list any names. Something I learned from my search on Ancestry.com, knowing a name like knowing a fact is not the same thing as knowing a person. I came up with a few things that seem relevant to knowing someone. You need to know certain things about a person. What do they do? Where do they live? You need to perceive an embodied version of them in some way, and nowadays that could include some photographs or video. There's also an element of time in knowing someone. Often the longer you know someone enables us to believe that we know them better. But the question still remains, is that sufficient for knowledge? Do you really know that person? I might think I might know my neighbor, even though I don't know some particularly key facts about him. For instance, he's an undercover spy, and that everything he tells me about himself is a cover-up for his covert life. When a parent puts a kid up for adoption, it's because they are unable to care for them, to raise them, or they don't want them. And so the information that I got from my non-identifying social genetic report was authored by a birth mother on the verge of putting her child up for adoption and a social worker. So what I learned over the last year since I had my DNA testing is how much of that report made within those circumstances can I actually believe. when I read the non-identifying social genetic report to the person I believed was my birth father's brother, based on our DNA connection, he told me that parts of the report concerning his brother and his family were inaccurate or even false. The report seemed to be describing a different person. Not long after I completed the Shibboleth project, my birth mother finally consented to releasing my impounded birth certificate. The birth certificate included her name and also the alleged birth father's name. Shockingly, the person that she named as my birth father was not the same man that I was genetically connected to, and has no relation to that family based on the DNA testing. Since then, I've tried to get in touch with my birth mother, but she hasn't responded to any of my letters at this point. So I've been unable to resolve my origin story. And so I seem to be stuck in this social, legalistic, and familial shibboleth. Thank you.